Hello, you lovely people, and again, welcome back to your channel as well as my channel. I said in the previous video that I was going to talk about my time when I was working in Japan, and it was a good opportunity which I couldn't really turn down. And at that time, I hadn't been to any Asian countries, uh, East Asia or even Southeast Asia at the time. I hadn't been to any. So I took up the opportunity to go to work, in Japan, and I flew into Kansai Airport, and the company that I was going to be working for, there was, a chaperone there that was going to meet me, which they did. It took me anyway. I was working in Osaka, and the place I was staying was called Nara, which is a very historical town, really, and it's a seaside town. Very beautiful, with a castle there, and there's a deer park. You can go and feed the deer, and the deer come and feed out your hand. But besides the work ethic, the first thing I noticed when I was in Japan was how clean it was. Very, very, very clean, and how organized it is, and still is today. And the vending machines, like we used to have in the UK many years ago, and these vending machines were normally on the wall outside of a shop, outside of a newsagent's normally, where people could get their cigarettes and things like that. Well, the vending machines that were, and they still are now in Japan, they have everything in there. From cigarettes to drinks to snacks, and they're everywhere. They just on the street corners. They not actually bolted on a wall. They like a kiosk, if you like, and everything is inside of it. I thought that was brilliant. And in the parks, they are everywhere. These vending machines where you can just go and get basically a snack or a drink or cigarettes, whatever you desire for things like that. Now, I love Japan, I really did, but it's because of they are very conservative, very, very, very conservative culture, and very timid, if you like, meaning they kind of introvertish. Now, making friends with 20 or 30-year-olds is a lot easier, but making friends with people of my own age was kind of difficult. And the reason for this is, from what I gather, and from the people that I did make friends with out there and was asking about this, was because they go to work, okay, and they finish the work and they go home. They don't really mingle outside of work with their colleagues. So they have quite a lonely life. The Japanese have quite a lonely personal life. And like I said, very difficult to make friends. For an example, I used to go to this park every morning in Nara, before I went to work. And when I first was going into the park, I used to see these people walking, and they love exercising. The older people love exercising. They always walking in the park, and I noticed it was the same people every day, more or less, at the same time. So I would, at first, oh, good morning, and they just to put their heads down, and I think part of it was probably because they were shy or embarrassed. And then I learnt a few words, hello, konnichiwa, and still nothing. But I was persistent, I was proactive. And if you're not proactive in Japan, you will not make friends, or you'll find it even more difficult to make friends if you're not proactive. If you're passive, then the chance of you making friends in Japan is going to be very, very slim. So I was just persistent in saying konnichiwa, good morning, and in the end, I think these people were so fed up with me, they kind of and they bow down, and they used to, because I was there for months and months and months and seeing the same people for months and months, they would speak to me. Not speak to me, but, you know, konnichiwa, konnichiwa. And at the end of this park, there was a big lake. And there was lots of turtles in this lake that I used to just sit on the bench and watch. And there was this old couple that I used to see all the time, man and wife. And they come and sat beside me. Now this is like a rarity, you know, but I'd seen them every day, and, you know, konnichiwa. And the lady, I think they must have been in their 70s. The English was very, 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 very small. And she said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm working here, you know." And got talking, kind of, and seemed very, very genuinely interested in England. And talking in broken English was very difficult, you know, and I was trying to explain life in England at the time, and how I was really enjoying being in their country, with it being very clean, it's very organised, and you go to the supermarkets and everything is very well packaged. It looks absolutely beautiful when you see some of these packaging of the apples, and there is nothing that is like second class. Everything is first class in these supermarkets, and relatively cheap. You know, people said to me before I went to work in Japan, they said, "Oh, very expensive country, very expensive." And I can't remember what the exchange rate at the time was. I can't remember. I really can't. The Japanese yen to the pound, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, I thought it was relatively cheap. And talking to this old couple, it was every morning thing then. Every morning thing, you know, they'd come and they'd sit and they'd just, you know, konnichiwa, and, you know, they'd bow their head, and they were retired. The guy, the husband, he used to work for Toyota, and he had retired several years before. And he was telling me, in as best as he could, that the work ethic in Japan is, if you have a job in Japan, being Japanese, it's very hard to get fired, because the government look after the workers. They are more for the workers than the companies. So he was in this company for a heck of a long time. No doubt had a good pension. And then what I did find was, what I found strange was neighbours don't know each other. Where I was staying in this, it was like a block of flats, but it was only 2 stories high. And I was in the bottom flat. Okay, I was in the bottom. And the door here, and the stairs going up to the next flight. Now, I never heard the person who was living opposite to me, they're so quiet, and, you know, they are so considerate of noise, not like the Philippines, you know. Philippines, anything happens, you can probably hear the roosters croaking here from time to time. But they are very, 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 very aware of people living next door, or just keeping a low profile of themselves. So, I eventually did bump into this person who was living next to me, and it was a lady, and she always used to ride a push bike, because I used to see the push bike outside of her door. Nothing's ever locked up. You know, there was no chains on these bikes, and many people ride pedal bikes in Japan. So anyway, this particular time, I was going in, and she was going in. So I said, "Hello, you know, konnichiwa," and she, "Hello," you know, and she went in, and I thought, it's very strange how people don't talk. There was no conversation. So again, I was persistent when I used to see her. And anyway, we did have tea together. And she was very friendly, never been married, had no children. And she started making dishes, you know, food. And she'd knock on the door, and I said, "Come in, please join me." But she never did. And she used to bring me Japanese food in, and the Japanese curry, which is absolutely beautiful, guys. It really is. It's not spicy or anything. Little bit. But it's very creamy. So it's a different curry to what I was ever used to and ever tasted. Very nice. Anyway, so I think, you know, once you kind of break the ice, you know, you can make an acquaintance. Let's just say make an acquaintance. And I found out as well from some work colleagues who were quite young that many Japanese people in relationship have affairs because that they feel that their husband works too much, because they do work long hours in Japan, and they kind of get lonely, I suppose. And it's not really frowned upon. It's not really frowned upon. So yeah, there was that, and also I had a car that was given from the company, and it was a little Suzuki thing, a little tiny little matchbox, and obviously everything is in kanji, katakana and hiragana, so there is nothing in English, nothing. And finding my way around was very difficult. But I managed to do it. I went to Hiroshima, I went to Nagasaki, and I went to Okinawa, did a bit of scuba diving with one of the colleagues who used to do scuba diving. A brilliant time. I haven't got any bad memories of Japan, none at all, but it can be a very lonely place. Not just for foreigners, but I think with foreigners it's a little bit different because we are a little bit more outgoing. We are a little bit more proactive, whereas the Japanese are not proactive in any way, shape or form. They're very, very passive and very, very conservative and introvertish. But I had a great time. I was there for over I think, what was I there for? Over a year and a bit, 13, 14, 15 months, I can't remember. But I had the opportunity of renewing my contract to work again, but I didn't want to because I had the opportunity of going to South Korea. And I wanted to travel a bit and working and traveling. And you might think Korea and Japan might be very similar, but they're very, very different. They're very different in every way. In every way. But that's a story for another time with South Korea. Japan, like I said, is a very, very clean country, guys. It's very safe. It's very, 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 very safe. No one seems to have any concerns about safety there. And the ramen houses, they're everywhere. And I'd never had ramen before, especially Japanese ramen. So cheap. It worked out at about £7 at the time, and you get a damn big dish of this ramen, and you can have whatever you want. You can have pork, chicken, or eggs in there. And I think it's 5 grades of the spiciness: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I was on number 3 all the time. I tried 1 and 2. I thought I could do with going up 1 for the spice. I tried 4 and 5. My God, 5. I just couldn't taste anything. My mouth felt like it was just couldn't taste nothing. So I stuck on number 3. And you have different tastes in different ramen houses. Some are better than others. But what I did notice in these ramen houses is you see them making the ramen, fresh ramen, and they've got this big, big cauldron with the boiling the bones. The beef bones or the pork bones, whichever ramen you decide to have. But absolutely delicious. Apparently not so good for you because it's full of salt. Suicides, which I was very, very surprised about. But then after staying there for a while, I can understand it a little bit. There is this forest, I can't remember what you call it, but there is this forest that is near Mount Fuji, and it's called the Suicide Forest. And you can look it up on the internet. It begins with an A, this forest. It's quite a long name. I can't remember it. And many women and men, but mainly men, they go there and commit suicide. And the reason for this is because with their culture and the way that they don't like putting themselves on anybody. So they don't like burdening people with problems that they have. Where we'll talk to friends if our partner's had an affair or we're in financial difficulty. We will either go to the doctors and talk to the doctor about it if we feel depressed and get some antidepressant tablets or whatever, counselling or psychiatry. But in Japan that doesn't happen because they feel ashamed. So what they do, rather than burden their families, they just go and commit suicide. And it's very, 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 very common in Japan, guys. I was shocked. And this, like I said, this forest where they go to and actually, when I came back from Japan, and someone told me about this forest, this suicide forest, as they call it, I googled it and went online, and yeah, it's true. And you can go onto YouTube, and there's lots about it. Uh, how they just go there, and some of them, because this forest is so vast, some of them have been there and they hang themselves. This is how they commit suicide in this forest. They hang themselves. Some of them leave little notes on the trees, and say, I've committed suicide, blah blah, and um, because of, not just I committed suicide, but I don't want to burden anybody, and they put like a little last note on there. And some have been there for so long that where they've hung themselves and they've rotted out, they've just fallen on the floor because the head has come off because they've been there for so long. They've rotted out, so there's just the bones on the floor. And there is now a guy who works in this forest, and his job is employed by the government to check the forest and look for suicides. Terrible job, but yeah, it's true. You can also see that on YouTube as well. But yeah, my overall feeling of Japan is a very, very nice country, but it can be a very lonely place. A very lonely place, not just for foreigners who go there working, but mainly for the for the citizens, because they don't. I think in further generations' time, it might change, because it is changing a bit, whereas the younger generation are a little bit more outgoing. And also tattoos, because I got tattoos. I didn't think, but I used to walk around in a t-shirt during the summer, and I used to get some really crazy looks, especially from the older people. And then I should have done a bit of research, the Yakuza, so they think there's people as tattoos as being in prison and bad people. They don't really see it as a decoration. They see it as being part of a fraternity, a gang of some kind. But the younger people understand more, because even some of the younger people that I met have tattoos or body art, whatever you call it, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, and they have these things called onsens, and it's like a spring, like a hot spring. Now, if you got tattoos, you can't, you are allocated to different onsens. So, me, for an example, I went to an onsen. I wasn't allowed because I had tattoos, and they said, blah, 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 you got to go to this one, which is miles away, and that's the place where people can go with tattoos. But generally speaking, you cannot get into an onsen, general onsen, with tattoos. Which is fair enough. It's their tradition, it's their culture. I didn't feel offended anyway at all. The food in Japan, when you go to restaurants, guys, is first class. It's first class, and they have this beef called Kobe beef, and it's so expensive per gram. So expensive. I tried it once. Very nice. It looks like marble. It looks like a marble, this meat. It's got lots of little... I enjoyed it. It melts on your tongue, but I wouldn't pay that price again. I prefer the normal beef, normal rump, or sirloin or T-bone. So I didn't really, I wasn't really into that. But yeah, I tried it. So yes, Japan is a lovely, lovely place. But again, like I say, it's very lonely, and it's not really a society of outgoing people like we are in the UK. We are very sociable by nature. We speak to strangers. They would never dream of speaking to strangers. Never. Even if it's their own kind. Neighbours, they don't even speak to each other, like I previously said. But great country. If any of you guys are planning on going there to work, live, I couldn't not say don't do it. I would say go, because it is a beautiful country. But make sure you go with somebody, or just be prepared for the solitude of the country, the not talkative society. And it's very strange, isn't it, when you think of what they did in the past, some of the the atrocities, how brutal they were. But that's not for me to say. But it's very strange how you see a society of people, especially the older generation of Japan, being very, very conservative. But again, when you look at history, how kind of brutal that some of them actually were. And I don't think they ever apologise, actually, the Japanese government, to South Korea, China when they colonized the place and were quite brutal. The Philippines as well included. But that's it, guys. I thought I'd just mention a little bit about that, and I thought it was a damn good place to work. I really enjoyed it. That's it, guys. Anyway, thank you for taking the time to listen. Please subscribe. I think my next video will be about South Korea when I was there. I was in South Korea for longer, actually, so more to say about South Korea. Take good care, guys. Have a great day. Please subscribe, share the video, and, of course, hit the notification button. Bye-bye.